Yes, that we are live, Village of Webster Board meeting here on December 8, 2022. And if you would stand with me, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Carl, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Carl, you all may be seated. And this evening, we have a number of things prior to moving to official business. But our first is a presentation coming from our chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Mark Nicholson. So, Mark, if you would like to step to the mic, clue us on what.
Absolutely, and thank you very much. And thank you for allowing me to come in here. I know I probably asked in short notice, but I appreciate you doing that. One of the things that I wanted to bring you to up to speed on was the Zoning Board of Appeals has been looking at the size of what we call, or what is called in your definitions, accessory structures. And when you think about that, what I want you to think about is think about sheds in the backyard. And how does somebody build them? Right now, they are maximum of 120 feet. They are maximum or 1% of your property size, and within 10 feet of your property line. One of the things that has taken place is I understand you guys have changed the property setbacks to now 5 feet within the property line. So someone can get within that 10 feet and go to 5 feet, and that's on the books right now. One of the things that we were looking at, and why do we get involved in this? Well, we get involved usually for variances that are requested when someone is asking for a larger than 120 square feet. 120 square feet, usually 10 by 12. That's usually what a shed is. Right now, some of the sheds that are being built are larger than that. And so the reason for folks to come to us and ask was for a variance. We have in most cases been granting the variances, but we began to take a look at this and look at some of the things that the other towns and villages were doing. And with the help of our attorney, who looked at some of the other towns, 5 feet was very consistent with that. Some of the other property sizes were larger. So what we did is we talked about what we could do with this and how will we do it. And ours is only a recommendation. Any changes to the code that takes place would have to come from you guys as the board of the Village of Webster. We thought about three major changes. One is the 5 feet, so that allows you to get close enough to the property line. And that was, in most cases, if you were 8 feet and nobody looked the other direction. But right now you can go 5 feet within the property line. The second thing was size. We upped the size to 144 square feet, our recommendation, square feet. That's essentially 12 by 12. Does that mean somebody can't build a 12 by 16? No, absolutely not. But when they come to getting the 12 by 16 permit from the village, they would have to come before the board and get a variance. So we will still grant those variances or have that ability if we go to 12 by 12. The other thing that we talked about in there, and we asked you guys to consider, is the height. And that was one that I got a personal issue with because I have seen some in some of the other towns and issues, and they're high. And so right now, it's limited to 10 feet. What we're doing is we're making a recommendation to you guys to consider taking that up to 12 feet. Now, those are the three changes. Does that mean somebody can't build a 14 or 16 foot? Absolutely not. What that means, though, is that they will come to the board, ask for a variance, and present the reason for that variance in their backyard. And all the things that we did, why did we do this? Well, we began to see a fair number of these over the last couple, 3 years, and I don't have the exact number in my head, but we saw a number of variance requests for backyards to put in a larger shed or closer to the property line. So what we did was just, what's it doing in other towns? We got that moved from 10 feet to 5 feet, which seems to make sense. We got the height moved, or the recommendation to move the height from 10 feet to 12 feet, and the size from 120 to 144 square feet. And by the way, the code will also currently says, or 1% of the total property size. I think we leave that in there. But that's what we're looking at. Those are the recommendations that we've come up with. The board will have to make a decision on that. They change the codes. We don't change the codes, we just interpret them once they're done. And at that point, I'm going to stop, see if anybody has any questions, anything that came before us, anything like that.
Pretty self-explanatory.
No, I don't,
Carl's been at most of our meetings, so he's been active in the process and been able to input to that.
I do have a question. In the old village, I would call it the old village, a number of the properties are 50 feet wide, and many of the garages are basically almost on the property line as they were built.
Correct.
Do they have like a grandfather clause to them if the pre-existing garage is there and they would change the size of it or change the height of it? Or
Yes, they do have a grandfather, if you will, as the appropriate clause. If they're built and they're in that position right now, and they were that way when they set up the regulations for the code for the village, then they would stay in there, be, as you said, grandfathered in. There would be no request to change. We wouldn't ask for a request. It's there. We've got a date on the date of building, and that would be it.
okay.
I think the increase is fair. For sure.
Thank you, sir. I think it's fair too.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Good, pretty self-explanatory.
I appreciate that, Mark, since it will be coming to us. Maybe we'll see more of you.
There you go.
Maybe we'll see more of
You can see more of us.
you see him, but
We do see them on a regular basis, but if we ever come across with major changes or recommendations for changes, because we don't make changes to the code. We implement the code as it is written and we interpret it as it's written, but any changes would have to come from you guys. Changes to the code comes from you guys, from all of them. All the village codes come from you guys.
thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, gentlemen. You have a great day and a very nice Christmas.
And you too.
Thank you.
You and then the family. All right. At this time, we will move to public comment portion of the meeting. If there's anyone who would like to address the board this evening, you may do so. Come to the mic, state your name, and anything you would like to comment on. Okay. I don't see any movement towards the microphone, so at this particular point, I will close the public comment portion of the meeting, and we will move next to a presentation by Tom Zuber regarding the 2021-22 audit. So, sir, it's to
Can you
you.
hear me okay? I can go up in front if you'd like, or I can sit here, whatever you...
Well, if you're comfortable there.
All right.
All right.
Well, good. Thank you very much for inviting me here tonight. You should have received in your board packets a copy of the basic financial statements, which is a fairly thick document. Included in that is the letter of communication. In addition, you should have received an internal control communication, which is the smaller of the two reports. And I'm pleased to say that we've completed the audit of the financial statements, and the village continues to be in good financial condition. And these financial statements really, they're a result of a budget process that you started really probably more than 2 years ago, right? If these are the 2022 financial statements, and these really are the end results of that budget, okay? And in that big thick document, I'll give a few overviews or highlights of the basic financial statements, but if you have any questions on anything within the financial statements, feel free to stop me and ask, and I'll try to react to those questions. But overall, the basic financial statements, there are a couple different key components within there. Obviously, our audit opinion, which is unqualified, no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies. That's really what you're looking for in the audit of the basic financial statements. That's the standard opinion. But within the document too, there's this document called the Management Discussion and Analysis, and that's on page 3 through 12, and that's really a nice summary of the different financial activity that took place during the year. So there's some financial highlights, there's some summary financial information, there's some discussion on budget variances. There's also a quick discussion on factors that will impact the village going forward. And again, the intent of that document is if you were to read through that, you'd have a fairly good idea of what took place during the year. And that's a nice document, and management puts that together as part of the financial reporting package. And then we get into the numbers piece as we get into the basic financial statements. And if you recall, in the past, there's two different financial statements. There's that corporate style financial statement, okay, and that's where we consolidate all of your operating funds, so your general fund, your parks fund, your capital project fund, and then we include all of your capital assets and related long-term obligations, okay? And finally, you get into the operating statements. So there's a lot of good information in the financial statements, but overall, I think I just wanted to give a few brief highlights when it comes to the overall operating statements, which really primarily is the general fund. Okay, we'll make a few comments on the sewer fund when we talk a little bit about that. But overall, page 15 of the basic financial statements really is that snapshot of the general fund. And when we look at the financial condition of the village, we really focus on the bottom half of the page, the equity section. And you can see the overall total equities were about $2.8 million in the general fund as of, or a little over $2.8 million in the general fund as of May 31st, 2022. And you can see there's a couple different components of that. There's the non-spendable fund balance, there's restricted fund balance, assigned fund balance, and then the unassigned fund balance, okay? And you can see the non-spendable really represents the long-term loan, or the loan between the sewer fund and the general fund. And then you have your restricted funds, which really are those reserves. So as you know, you have a reserve for debt payments, okay, about $43,000 of that number. You've got a capital reserve, which is about $275,000, as well as a retirement reserve. So couple reserves there in those restricted dollars. The assigned fund balance, that's really encumbrances, so dollars that you've committed to but you haven't actually spent yet, okay? And then that unassigned fund balance, just over $2 million. That really is there for operational purposes. And overall, the fund balance from last year to this year did increase about $650,000, okay? Which is fairly consistent with what we've seen in other municipalities. You know, the end of this year, really you've got from May 2020, or June 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2022. So obviously still in that COVID time period, and just and fairly consistent with every single other municipality we work with. You know, you did end the year in very good financial condition. There are a couple of unique things that took place this year. One of the areas is in the sales tax, right? Sales tax continues to be exceptionally strong with municipalities. You know, we continue to monitor that. Municipalities continue to monitor that, because where will that continue to move in. And as you know, with inflation, the numbers have still been fairly strong from the sales tax returns. So again, that's something I think a lot of folks didn't expect to happen. One of the key reasons for that, though, is right about the beginning of the pandemic, there was this little law that went into place that the governor at the time had put in place regarding the taxation of internet sales. Okay, so that's really the reason, one of the major reasons why we see the strength in the sales tax numbers is because of the fact that something that was never taxed before is now being taxed. Okay, so that continues to be why we see the strong sales. Really, it's primarily the internet sales. Okay, the other argument is on your spending plans, right? And consistent, I think, with many other municipalities. Because of that period of uncertainty with COVID, there are quite a few different projects and things that the village really didn't begin. Primarily roads and sidewalk construction in a major area. And again, as the village board really made some very positive decisions and saying, let's wait and see what really happens during this period of uncertainty. So, I think those are some of the reasons why we see the very positive financial returns at the end of 2022. And again, as you move forward and you're doing some of those projects that you didn't get to in the past, I think you'll continue to monitor that. But overall, again, at the end of the year in very good financial position. Overall, general fund equity went up about $650,000, so I'll continue to monitor that. Okay. The other major fund really of the village ends up being the sewer fund, which is a business type activity. All right, and you can see that on page 18. Really, we'll just look at that snapshot. And again, the sewer fund being a business type activity, we include within that fund all of the different capital assets as well as all of the long-term obligations. And the one unique part about that fund is that when you look at the year-end fund balance, you see a negative $1.2 million. When you look at your overall ending equities in your sewer fund. And the challenge with that, unlike the governmental fund, unlike the general fund, the sewer fund has to recognize certain long-term obligations. And one of the biggest long-term obligation relates to retiree health insurance, in which the village has to go out and identify or obtain an actuary. And they come in and they look at all of the contracts you have in place and they identify how much of a benefit, a health insurance benefit, are you offering your retirees. Okay, and this calculation is done. The total town-wide or village-wide obligation is about $4.8 million. Okay, and then the sewer fund's share is about $1.4 million. Okay, so the challenge when you look at this presentation, that negative number really is because you have this liability, this retiree health obligation that you had to set money aside for, okay? And so that's why you see that negative number there. It's really as a result of that calculation, okay? And so if you were to take that out, okay, which is about $1.4 million, you end up seeing about a positive $200,000 in that business type activity. So, when you look at it on the surface, it looks like there's a negative number there, but when you kind of factor in this long-term retiree health obligation, it kind of brings it back around to a positive $200,000. And again, with the retiree health, the way that the village operates is you budget, you're on a pay-as-you-go basis. Okay, so if your retiree obligation is $100,000, you pay $100,000 for those health insurance obligations. Okay, this is just an accounting transaction that we have to do when it comes to the reporting of this particular fund, and that's why you see that adjustment. And that retiree health number, what they're doing is they're taking and looking at the contracts and saying, this is the commitment we made for these employees based on the contracts, right? And they have to look at how long those individuals will live, and they bring it back to a present value, okay? And that's why that number is so large, okay? So that's really the only unusual item when you look at it in the financial statements on the surface. It looks a little unique, but when you really pull it apart a little bit, it brings it back down to the sewer operations at about positive $200,000. Okay? So again, those are the key financial items within the basic financial statements. We also issued an internal control communication, which we used to call the management letter, but it's internal control related matters, part of identified during the audit. Again, as part of any audit process, we come in and we sit down with your staff and we really document the different processes and procedures that you have over the different financial cycles. So we'll take a look at your payroll processes and procedures and how do employees report times on their time cards, and then how does that get communicated into the finance department and entered into the system, and all of the different checks and balances over that payroll process. And again, I'm pleased to report no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, so that's very positive. The items in the letter, just some minor procedural items relating to some of the checks and balances. Again, nothing significant. So again, just some minor procedural recommendations for the village board to consider going forward. Okay. There was one item that was talked about in the prior year that was corrected. So again, that's very positive from the audit standpoint. Shows that you're reacting to recommendations from the external auditor. So again, I think overall, very, very positive financial results. I know this was the first time through the audit with us, and I really do appreciate the finance department. Anytime you're coming in and you've got some change, can be a little more difficult, but I thought the audit went very smoothly, and really the information was provided to us very timely. Unfortunately, with all of our June 30th and May 31st audits, we had to wait on the state to give us certain financial information relating to the pension system, and that really ends up being why we can't finish the report. So that information was released sometime in late August, and then after we have to get it blended into the financial statements and so forth. So, okay. Again, overall very positive. Certainly happy to react to any questions you have.
Any recommendations that we do that better?
Well, I think in the internal control communications, we talked about a few minor procedural items just to make sure that you're looking at your different checks and balances and enhancing those checks and balances. But you do have a very strong business finance department that really does a good job in terms of the current procedural items that you have. And again, that's what we do when we come into the audit. We understand and have to understand what checks and balances you have in place, and are you following those checks and balances, okay? And then as we go through that process, we will make recommendations for best practice, okay? And, some are just kind of general minor recommendations, and, I don't think we have anything significant in terms of that process, okay? But overall, again, you're doing a very good job.
Thanks, ladies.
Very nice.
What's that?
Very nice work, Marcia.
Thank you very much. It's been really great working with Tom. I'm very happy with everything.
Good. I'm glad that this first year went well. Great. Pleased with the result myself.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't have many particular questions. I'm kind of been through this discussion.
Yeah. Just, now we gotta get straightened out with the sewer fund.
I can give you a year-to-date, an update on like the sewer debt and all that stuff. Probably the first meeting in January.
Good. I'm gonna see that.
Yeah, it's weird when you're looking at these documents that are, what, 6, 7 months old. A lot has happened since then.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Good shape. Okay.
Good, thank you, Tom.
I appreciate your
Marcia, good.
attendance. questions and good report.
So, I thought we paid that off.
We did in July.
Yeah, okay. Again? Okay, I'm good.
All right, last we have at this particular point, I believe it's 7:25, and we will now move to a public hearing on proposed local law number 10 of 2022, entitled, quote, "A local law to amend certain provisions of the code of the Village of Webster as it relates to the collection of refuse," unquote. This is dealing with chapter 127, solid waste. And first of all, there is an amendment. Conditions for licensing by the addition of the following in section 127.10. Collection of refuse within the village shall be limited to Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday unless the collection day is altered to accommodate a holiday. Secondly, amending section 127.25B, haulers, by the addition of the following. Haulers that provide cover totes with a capacity of no less than 36 gallons are authorized the option to collect recyclables every other week on the same day as solid waste collection, provided, however, that notification of such a change be communicated to the customer no less than 30 days prior to such change. The totes designated for the collection of recyclables shall be of a different color from the solid waste collection tote, or shall be marked in such a manner that clearly indicates their intended use for recycled materials. And third, this local law shall take effect 20 days after it is filed in the office, provided in section 27 of the Municipal Home Rule Law. So at this particular point, in terms of this proposed local law, I would open the floor to public hearing if anybody would like to address the board regarding this local law.
Well, I think it takes away from all the noise. Do it on Thursday and Friday.
You can sleep in, Carl, on Thursday and Friday, right?
Yeah, not me. 7 o'clock. But
If nobody would like to address the board, then I would close the public hearing regarding this. And I personally would make a comment regarding section, second item. 36 gallons, I'm not quite sure the size of that. Is that the size of what we have with waste management right now?
no, it's
Yeah.
96.
Yeah, those big ones at the end of your driveway is 96.
96, yeah. So
Those
it's
are
about
96.
Yeah, that you roll down to the end of your
Right,
driveway.
they're little bill, half-size totes.
Because in 2 weeks, I mean, in 1 week, we fill up 2 blue boxes. And I'm saying, if you were waiting for 2, every other week collection, you may need a lot more, than what's there. If you really, truly recycle, plastics and all that. So I don't know, I mean, is this something that would be on a across-the-board basis with the waste collection, companies, or would it be something that if you said to them, I don't wish to do this, please collect every week, they would do that? I don't know.
Yeah, it says, it looks on here, it says option, authorized option to collect recycles every other week.
Yeah.
Because that 127.25B, I believe it's A underneath there, or above that, would say that the haulers are required to collect every week on the same day as the waste but we've had some haulers express interest in picking up recycling every other week, and we picked the 36 gallon because the totes, the blue bins are about 16 gallons, I believe, for the, you know, the regular open blue bin. So this gives you a closed bin if they wanted to do that option. I talked to a couple of the haulers. One of them said that they would never change. They think they would continue to do it every week. And one of them that recently took over another company, I think, they've kind of expressed an interest in doing it every other week, or I guess more than express an interest. They started picking it up every other week, and our code doesn't necessarily allow that. But it is, you know, perhaps if they had something with enough capacity, it'd be a reasonable option. We just wanted to present that to the board. And as far as, you know, we've always had in our permit, we only allow Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and frankly, I didn't know why we had it like that, and I started thinking about the other operations, the other things that we do. Our street sweeping schedule, we go out every Thursday. So I hey, now it makes sense, and we finish up on Friday if, you know, if we got more, so we're not sitting there dodging totes or leaving stuff everywhere where somebody has their tote out. So I think that's important. I asked Don if we could continue to control that or regulate that through the permitting process, and he was pretty clear that no, we can't do that. We have to pass a code if we wanted limited to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's what we do. We can't just through the permit say only Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So that's, you know, why we presented this to the board to consider as a code change to kind of codify what we've always been doing. There's a company that picks up now on Thursday that I already alerted them the permit that they're issued and that the application they signed was clearly Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they just can't arbitrarily change the dates. So we're trying to make sure we get some teeth when we say you can't do that. Even though the permit's already issued, it's already written in there, I guess, but it doesn't match with the code. It's just never been an issue before.
Well, I personally agree on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in terms of collection. I think the only thing that bothers me is that in terms of trying to be conscious of recycling, and every other week collection.
Well, see, it depends on the hauler. Like Waste Management gives you the little, you know, little green bins. I know my neighbor, he's got, every bird of the company, it's out of Greece there. They give you like a little mini toter, so that'll last you 2 weeks. It just depends what service you have. Yeah, you know, like you said, those 2 little bins you fill up, you wouldn't be a candidate, I wouldn't be a candidate, it sounds like you wouldn't be a candidate to go every other week. But if you had the toter, so I guess it depends on the hauler, you know, what they provide for recycling.
And it's something we could certainly, I'd have to ask Don, because if you make it more restrictive after a public hearing, would you have to have another public hearing if you change it? I think if you change it to a minimum size of 32, I think you'd be able to change that before it passed, but if you changed it to 60, it would be more restrictive, and I think you'd have to do another public hearing, but you might as well get it what you want. The 36, quite frankly, was, you know, trying to do some research and see what size the normal tote would be, and then talking to some of the haulers. I think one of them had a 40 gallon. So I said, all right, well, 36 would allow for, you know, different shapes and sizes of them, and so I, you know, searching online to say, well, what sizes of recycled tote, and you know, there's all sorts of different sizes. A lot of them are 60 gallons, I think, also. But we have to.
Well, they manually load those recyclable, not empty those.
Yeah.
Manually empty them, so.
Well, that's a good point.
I think that 36 gallon is probably the heaviest they prefer to do.
All right, yeah, that's a great point, because yeah,
And that's why we have the little blue ones, because they're easy to empty manually. No, they don't have a thing that does not.
yeah, it didn't work, you know, with the customer's lifestyle or habits. You know, they could have a different, you know, a different company. You know, I know, you know, company A is going to pick up and recycling every week with the garbage, and they're not going to change it. That's why I want to go with it. You know, company B might say we're going to do recycling every other week, and this as long as there's supervision, so stuff's not going all over the place, and you know, there's capacity. I think that was one of the things, and that was the hardest, honestly, out of all of this, the hardest part was figuring out how many gallons to write in there, you know? 'Cause and that's why I was trying to talk to them and see what sizes that were available.
Yeah, we fill up 2 weeks. And it's just the 2 of us.
I think to be limiting like 36 gallons.
Well, then, I think you'd be prompted to squash
Talk with
your,
a hauler.
squash your cans and squash your bottles and really stomp on everything and put it in the can so it wouldn't take up so much room.
That's what I'm talking about. Waste management on Monday. See what they're feeling.
Well, that's one of them that I talked to, and I talked to Bill real often, and indicated that they would be picking them up every, and continue to pick them up every week.
Waste management is awesome, yeah. So,
Well, there's public comment on it, so I guess we'll move on and continue our research independently and make a decision on that, huh? All right, let's move to our business part of the meeting here. First of all, we have a resolution to approve minutes from November 22nd, 2022. Board minutes. I looked them over, I didn't find that there was anything that was particularly lacking. I think they were covered well.
I would agree myself.
me too.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
All second.
Trustee Lauer?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Mayor Byers?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, next we have a resolution to approve the claims and warrants. The opportunity to look them over, and I didn't find anything necessarily that was out of the ordinary.
Where are we going? Wait a minute, I gotta find
Okay.
it.
Already asked Jake my questions.
Mayor Byers?
Yes, Heather?
You'll notice that there's a second abstract that we were asked to pay for from Lubella. So you don't have to do a separate vote for it, it can all be just one. But that's also like a blank, or not a blank sheet, but like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Separate sheet,
We can put it together.
yeah. We just weren't sure if there was gonna be a change with it, so we put it on its separate, on its own. But we did get notification that it's okay.
That's not the one that's on its own, is it? That's on,
Loosely.
Fry.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
all right.
I saw something for Jake, but I can't find it.
Move on, quick. Just kidding.
Nothing, you know. Do you have a toolbox in your garage?
Right, a toolbox in there? And there, yes,
You know, nuts and bolts and all that stuff?
yeah.
Good.
Well, we have nuts and bolts assortment, but we buy them because we use them, and we have to replace
I
them.
know, Michael. Where is
I
it?
think that's been
There was
open.
one that struck me.
Aaron's not here, huh? Moving the fireproof filing cabinets into the office. I guess we do need to have those fireproof ones, and they are big
Yeah.
and heavy. They did a good job moving everything. Yeah.
Plier, crimper, cutter, connectors.
Yeah, that was for the,
$32.
the salt, the little electric salter that's on the flatbed. repairs to that and, doing work on that to make sure the blades work and the blades work and the spinner spun.
Well, I'm getting good. You turn that on, I don't even have to say anything.
I know,
Must be like
you will look.
the look.
I got the look. Is it, I just have a question. I know I'm not supposed to ask questions on bills, but is it quarterly stipend for the band director? Proper amount? Is that a
It's
typo?
okay if you keep asking questions,
It's on
because
page 2.
that goes into your time, so we're good.
Oh, perfect.
What page did you say?
Page 2, 9431. It was 1,200?
Yep.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
I thought you said it was
I
900.
heard when you're doing
900.
the winter concert, I assume that they are doing it.
Yeah, I just saw something on Facebook on it. I forgot. what it was.
Seems to be pretty early in the year for, Jake, for the plow, but I noticed the $6,000 repair on the wing plow. What in the world happened already?
It was left over from last year, and there was all these parts and stuff, and we were using the vehicle all winter, so they're just, or excuse me, all summer. So we finally got it down to them, but 4,000, I think 4,400 of that was a cylinder, and the hydraulic cylinders, and the rest of it is we're doing the repair
Right.
and some miscellaneous parts. But yeah, I was a wee bit shocked myself.
The bell is doing good. They're really doing
Yeah, they're doing good by us.
Yeah.
They're really great. to
Well,
work with.
They are.
We had an opportunity to, you should, I could definitely share it with you. The binder that I received from them is this thick, and there are over 120, I think, pages of, diagrams,
Yeah.
blueprints, all of that stuff. So they're definitely working and moving ahead. And by the way, we would like to keep in mind that they're making a presentation to the town board, zoning board of appeals on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. So our T's are crossed, our I's are dotted, so we will see what happens.
Yeah, good.
All right, any other comments on the? Okay, I'll ask for a motion and approve the claims and warrants.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Lauer?
Aye.
Mayor Byers?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, next we have a motion to authorize Mayor Byers to sign the intermunicipal agreement between the town and the village regarding the MO65 Ready Grant. This was in regards to the well decommissioning and replacement of the wastewater pump stations. If you read that through, the grant was for $501,000, 5% match by the town and village required a grant equaling $25,050. And then there was a decision on what the apportionment of that grant would be to the town and to the village. And the combined contract price on page 2, you can see, is $1,081,710. The village's share was $320,440, and the town's share was $761,270. And that then works out to be a percentage of the grant to the town of 70% and the village's share of 30%. So, The village shall receive $142,785 from the net grant award. And to the extent that this agreement contradicts the original MOU between the town and the village, this agreement shall control and supersede the MOU. So, I believe that I think I knew that. Motion to authorize the payment of this, or collection of our funds from this grant.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Trustee Lauer?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Mayor Byers?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next we have a resolution to authorize the village board to release a letter of credit, funds in the amount of $581,629.68 for Greenbrier Crossing Section 2, release number 2. We have a breakdown in front of you of all of the things that are being requested individually. They are moving along very well, I think, in terms of construction. They're moving forward, and as you look through that all, the original letter of credit was for $1,201,532 and change, and I believe that there is left after we authorize this total of $420,671.68. So they're moving along. So anyways, I would ask for a resolution to authorize the mayor to, or to authorize the board here to release this letter of credit funds.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Lauer?
Aye.
Mayor Byers?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, Marcia, you can authorize that. Payment.
Actually, Don pays that. Don,
Don?
yep.
Oh, Don, you listening? You? All right. Yes, we are missing some tonight. We're missing Jerry, we're missing Jude, we're missing Don.
And I send the letter to the bank telling them to release the funds.
So it's not in the order.
I forgot to put that in the resolution though, that give me permission to write the letter, but I don't think I need it, but it's part of it.
But we do give you permission.
Thank you.
All right. And finally, from our village business standpoint, we have a resolution to authorize the mayor to sign a retainer agreement with Napoli Shkelnik PLLC for PFA's cost recovery. And what this is apparently it's a retainer agreement with this attorney at law. And this contract involves retains this law firm to prosecute any legal claim for negligence or other viable causes of action against any and all parties, individuals, and or corporations that are found to be liable under the law for injuries or property damages suffered arising out of the contamination of water supplies by per and polyfluoroalkyl and related substances, PFAS, PFOA, 1.4 dioxane, and other emerging hazardous contaminants. So it looks as if anything is found and a suit we can collect damages on this, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Then this attorney at law would represent us, and they would receive 25% of the sum recovered, and the client, we also would be responsible for an additional 10% too, I believe, right? So that would mean we would be eligible to receive, out of any award for finding any of these contaminants, 65%.
It's mostly related to water and wastewater. This was an effort started by NAGMEA and New York Rural Water. Because they're an emerging contaminant concern. They're called a forever chemical. A lot of it was firefighting foam and things like that. So these, if down the road, this is really to protect our taxpayers and ratepayers, if down the road there becomes a cost associated with the treatment or reduction in PFAS in a waste, for us particular in a waste stream, and there's a finding that companies that made these would have a liability in that. If there's a recovery, then the village would get 65 cents on the dollar. As far as that is to offset the additional costs that might be associated with treatment or removal of these contaminants. Because, obviously we don't, if we can stop them going out, then they don't come back in, or we stop them on the way in, or ideally they're gonna look at doing both, but I think it's something that they're still trying to figure out. This is something that, years ago they thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, these firefighting foams and some of the other chemicals that they and products that they're in, and now they're finding that maybe some of the things aren't so good. So this is really, like I said, when we read about this and New York Rural Waters was behind it, and it's no cost to the village, it just kind of keeps your foot in the door and provides a kind of an insurance policy or protection if there is additional costs associated down the road, and there is liability that's found, we have a chance to recover.
Where do we find this PLLC?
That was New York Rural Waters, and they, teamed up and looked, they've done a lot of this type of work, not necessarily PFAS, but other products or product liability or chemical liability and things, so they vetted them and suggested that to the member utilities.
How would you were talking regarding firefighting. Would this be a foam that they would use to put a fire out? Is this something that you are aware of, that anything in the village has ever used this? Any of the fire departments?
I'm not sure if the fire departments or could be in some of the, I'm not certain what's in the, in the gas station hoods and things like that right now. But I know with industry, especially things that we had down along the railroad corridor and things like that, and industry down north, this just in case these are around or get through, to our plant, it could be things, household stuff. It's just these are things that don't break down, I guess. I believe this is what, you see all the ads on TV about Camp Lejeune and things like that. I believe this is a similar product to that. It's causing issues there. That was something contaminated in their water supply and
So do we watch for that, or is there a way for us to?
We don't,
Test
currently,
for it?
there's not a requirement, but I think that's one of the things that, as EPA makes changes and passes it down and the state adopts those things, if it comes to a time that they're going to say, hey, let's stop these. There's 2 points when we really have access, other than if it's on a specific site, there's 2 points when they have access to clean it up and makes the most impact is, if we have it contained in a pipe coming in, and we have to treat it or contain in the pipe going out or going through a plant, that's an opportunity to be able to remove. Frankly, I don't even know if they have determined the best way to remove these yet, or to have them, but it's something that's coming, that, in the industry, that's something that they're talking about coming down the road, so they want to make sure that, like I said, without having the technology or the knowledge of what they're doing yet, there's a lot of guess that there's probably some pretty good cost going to be associated with it. So, once you remove it, you have to do something with it. So there's going to be disposal costs for whoever owns it. So, but it's very similar. We had a marine shale. I think it was a lawsuit or something that years ago in 10 or 12 here, that we had some chemical that we had once here and we sent to somewhere in Buffalo to properly dispose of it. They sent it down somewhere else in the south. And since they improperly disposed of it, we were named, along with a whole bunch of other people, because they did properly, and whoever generated it was the one who was responsible, kind of cradle to grave. So that's kind of a similar thing with this. And I remember we had a payment to kind of absolve ourselves of the liability for that. It kind of went into a pool or something. So we had to kind of pay our way out of that. This is kind of a similar thing from the manufacturer's standpoint, that they would perhaps have a product liability and have a payment for it.
Has Don looked this over, do you know?
He did. Yep, he did, and I think I forwarded his email to Heather as well. He said he looked it over and it looked good.
Then I would ask for a motion to authorize the mayor to sign this retainer agreement.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Lauer?
Aye.
Mayor Byers?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Don is not here. I don't know if he's passed on anything. I don't believe that there's anything new, other than the fact that there will be an appearance this coming Tuesday at the town of Webster Zoning Board of Appeals. And he and Matt from Labella will be making a presentation to them.
He did give Jake and I one message, and he said to tell Jerry, go Bills.
Okay. Heather, do you have anything for us? No?
I do? Oh, yeah. We just have to point out that we included in your packets the annual deposit of the HSAs. So you have the amounts in your pack. Just as a notification.
Okay, well, we move then to Jake.
Obviously, one of the items in the bill pay was the sandbar wells. It's, we had an inspection on Wednesday morning. And with the engineers, just to check for substantial completion, obviously that came back positively, and that's why the bill pay went through. Just minor little cleanup things that we're going to attend to in the spring, because we're not allowed for where the excavations were around within the buildings themselves, will allow for freeze and thaw and settling. If we fix them now, we'll just be back to fix them later. And we went over that schedule with the property owner there. Everything, I think it took quite a while, but everything overall ended up very well. The leaf season, we're happy to report that the leaf season is complete. I want to thank the guys, they did an awesome job. The weather cooperated this year with them pretty well. That was, I think, the nicest leaf season that I've seen in 12 or 13 years, and they certainly deserved a break from some of them when we're chopping through, frozen piles and things like that. But they did great. They went around the I think 12 or 13 runs. We had our last run is going to be last Monday, that starting and finish that week. And we went out this week and got everybody didn't get the memo, and cleaned up, but there's really no pile. So anything that goes out after today, or from now on, have to be bagged. We are planning a spring cleanup. That's been very popular the last 3 or 4 years. We've been doing it. But they shouldn't go out yet. We'll announce on our website when the spring cleanup's going to be, and that's just one trip through. And a lot of times people use, for remaining leaves that are blown up against the fence line or things like that in garden beds. So,
How about brush pickup?
brush pickup we did this week.
Is that still going? or-
Yep, they finished it.
That's it too, that's done till the spring?
No, we do brush pickup every month, unless, it's funny, I had somebody call me in March of last year and wanted to know when we were doing brush pickup, and I said, it's the first full week of the month, we're gonna go out next week. Well, that's what I thought it was, but she goes, I put it out last month, and now when the snow melted, I could see it's still there. I waited a second, and she goes, oh, never mind. But obviously, if there's snow or there's snow piled on it, we're gonna, get it the next time. But, we typically, our schedule's every month, but snow is the only thing that would really stop us from doing that. And that's the first full week, and that schedule's on the website as well.
And then we get branches down during the winter.
I said one more thing, a personal thing. I want to congratulate my son Evan, who just last Wednesday was put on E5. He's
Good for him.
CB in the Navy. He went in as an E1 February 11th of last year, and then a year and 9 months, he's already an E5. I was in the Air Force 4 years and got out as an E4, so I don't know if I had to call him a sir now or what, but yeah, he's doing a good job, so.
I'm 85 and 17 months. Yeah. Because I was in a position, in an acting position, fortunate for me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Good for him. Smart boy.
Okay, anything else? Sir?
No, I was gonna quietly, while you're doing that, look up the village band concert for you, but I didn't get
Okay. I would advise the board and let you all know, those watching, Jerry and Jude, as well as you guys here, Al and Carl, that Heather sent out an email. It was entitled Sample Joint Comprehensive Plans. In it, there are, I believe, at least 4 samples, town and village cooperation, Hammond, New York, Richfield and Richfield Springs, Manchester, and 3 villages that are associated with the town of Manchester, and Riga and the village of Churchville. So I would like you to, if you would please, look those over. Because I would like to have a discussion, and I would like to come up soon, if we can, at the next meeting. I'm not sure, but it would be nice to be able to do that. Regarding moving forward, we've talked about this comprehensive plan, but if we move forward with it in terms of a joint, or at least partial joint town and village, then we will need to do that, okay? And talk to the town in terms of how we do this. And so I will contact you guys and talk with you between now and next time as well. So, all right, but I just wanted to make you aware of that. Heather did send out the email, so it's available. Check the website. Okay. All right. If there is nothing else, then our next meeting is December 22nd. That is Thursday. And that will be our last meeting of the year prior to Christmas. So dress appropriately. I want to be an elf. I want to be Santa. I don't know about that. Jake's got that.
He has a sweatshirt he can wear.
Pardon?
He has a sweatshirt he can wear that says, "I like to smile. Smiling is my favorite," with Elf on it.
Oh, by the way, I do appreciate all of the work that was done for our winter parade and for the activities that went on, for the opening of village offices to the village and town residents to come in and to sit on Santa's lap, the little ones, and that was neat. I would mention that I think he has agreed possibly to do it one more year, although Santa will continue coming year after year. I don't want to dash the hopes of those of you out there who really know that Santa comes every year, but anyways, we'll be looking forward to that. It was really nice, actually. So,
I got one.
you have one.
Last Tuesday night, I had an opportunity to go teach the young Cub Scouts about local government. And it lasted about 45 minutes. 20 minutes was, I had their attention really good. The last 20 minutes were, kind of off-the-wall questions, and they told me I should be president. And I looked like a politician. And I mean, it was really a good time, and I'm lucky to have been picked to do that.
It's a neat experience.
It is.
I remember having the opportunity to have little ones, younger, I think it was Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts as well, and come in, and they were in here, and they sat out there, we talked a little bit, then they had the opportunity to sit in the chairs, and,
Cool.
can we use the microphone, and move them all around and stuff. It was neat. And thank you, office staff, for the decorations. They look very nice here. And our tree.
I did find the information on the village band concert. It's Saturday at 2 p.m. at Webster Schrader.
This coming Saturday?
Yes. Yep, Saturday the 10th.
Absolutely, great. Make that announcement that come this Saturday to Webster Schrader High School, 2 o'clock,
Yes.
for the winter concert of our Village of Webster band. Awesome. Very good. Anything else? If not, then I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you all for coming or for watching, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.